So as we move through the stages, you can almost view this as an ever widening spiral, where the earlier stages have very different perspectives than the later stages or the higher stages. And growth happens to a logical frequency through the stages where the worldview expands. So there's an expansion of oneself and their own perspectives, and also there's also an expansion in the world in general, and how certain events and other people and certain traits and behaviors are viewed. And as change happens in the individual, so it happens in the interior, there's also a change in exterior behavior naturally that comes through these stages. And we will touch on that a little bit later as well, how that specifically looks like. But that's kind of how this happens as well.
Who do you know right now that is currently at each of those levels, or at least maybe at red, yellow, orange, and green? Yeah. And if you can pick any that are beyond that, awesome. But let's focus on these four. It might be a child that you know that's currently going through one of these levels. It might be a brother, a sister, a mother, a father. It might be a boss or a co-worker, or an entire nation that you might see going through one of these levels at the moment, or a particular public figure that might be at one of these levels. Whilst it seems like one's higher than the other, there's no stage here that is better than the other. This is really important to hold in mind over the next 30 minutes. It's the same as saying that being a teenager is better than being an infant, or being an adult is better than being a teenager. It's not. They're just different stages of development. So regardless of where any of us are finding ourselves at, it's just a different stage of development, and it's just not accurate that one is better than the other.
With the stages that we also just walked through, there's a fair bit of information that's been shared in a relatively short window of time, right? So it's really like how can you start to recognize this in your day-to-day life, where you for yourself and potentially for other people, and start to really live this as a sort of inquiry process, or as a game, as a play, and start to see these dynamics playing out in reality, because that's where the magic happens. So we kind of have given you a little bit of the understanding of things, and now you can maybe start to somewhat see it, but to really start to familiarize yourself with it happens in your day-to-day life. So that would be really an offer there. And also, as you start to see that in yourself and in other people, it's really to approach it with unconditional love, because people are not defined by their stage, and it's not who they are. So it's just not useful, and it can happen pointing at others of you should be somewhere else than where you're at, or I should be somewhere else than where I'm at, or this or that. And really approaching with the gentleness and softness in that sense.